Welcome to the Bend Don't Break podcast. We are powered by The Source Weekly, Bend's locally owned newspaper. This podcast is our eddy in the rushing waters of local journalism. We are glad that you're taking some of your time to listen to us chat with the people who shape our local community.
Thank you to our presenting sponsor, RE/MAX Key Properties, a family-owned full-service real estate brokerage specializing in residential, luxury, commercial, new construction, and ranch and land properties. Their new state-of-the-art facility at 42 Greenwood Avenue is a modern, collaborative space and the new home of the Bend Don't Break podcast recording studio.
I'm Aaron Switzer, publisher of The Source Weekly and host of this Bend Don't Break podcast. I am joined today by our guest, Paula Dreyer. She is a classically trained composer and pianist based in Bend, Oregon, whose unique sound blends influences from romantic and impressionistic music, film scores, and Spanish traditions. Known for captivating performances that merge multiple art forms, her concerts offer a mesmerizing and emotionally rich experience. A global performer and educator, Paula's Little Gems for Piano books have sold internationally, and her debut solo album, Central Star, explores themes of imagination and creativity during life's transitions. Through her Piano Flow live series, she combines music, outdoor adventures, and visual arts to create immersive experiences.
That's right.
How'd we do? Pulling that together. Did we do pretty good? Anything in there that was false, Paula?
No, I agree with everything. There's probably more we could add, but that's a good starting point.
Well, hopefully we'll get into that. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Full disclosure, our event company who collaborated with Paula on the Piano Flow series to some success this year. It was really great to work with her, and we were sitting around the office with Megan, who is on a mic. Megan, say hi to everybody. Hello. You can't see her, but for listeners, she is here. We thought it'd be great to chat about this new endeavor of yours and things that are happening. But first, I'm really curious how someone as talented as yourself ends up, the ways that it flows to Bend, Oregon. So how did you end up here in this part of the country?
Well, I moved here from the San Francisco Bay Area about 6 years ago, and we were living in Oakland, and we have 2 young children. So our neighborhood was very fun and vibrant, but also had crime and
a little edgy.
Definitely some edginess. And I applied for like 10 different schools, didn't get into any of those, including public and charter and everything you can imagine. So my husband had friends that have lived in Bend, and he loves to snowboard and was really, I think he wanted to move here probably since we met. Yeah. And it took him a good 10 years to convince me, but
yeah.
I kind of had a feeling like something was going to happen. I thought it was an earthquake in the Bay Area, and I felt like our property's going to decline or something's going to happen, and we probably should get out before it does. And that was 2018. Yeah. And then a year and a half later, the pandemic hit, and it was very hard for me to move here, to leave my music career. And my sister lives in the Bay Area. Yeah. A lot of good friends. I was there for 20 years. Yeah. So it was very difficult. But looking back now, if we would have been there during the pandemic, it would have been really catastrophic for both my career and my husband's.
How so? Why do you think it would have been rougher down in the Bay Area than it was here? It was pretty rough here.
Yeah, it was rough. But for me personally, I played in a long-running musical in San Francisco called Beach, Blake, and Babylon. Okay. And that was a pretty large part of my income. It went for 45 years, and I played for 12 of those years. Yeah, so that was another very hard thing for me to leave. And that ended up closing.
You were part of that for 12 years?
For 12 years, and I was, I think, the only female band member the whole time.
So you played music for the performance. It was a musical?
Yeah.
My ignorance on the performance is showing right now.
Yeah. It's just a San Francisco show, so you might not have heard of it. Yeah. They did tour a little bit in Hawaii and in London, but it's mostly in San Francisco, and they did 7 shows a week and sold out a lot of the shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it would change
I'm
with the
totally
times.
impressed.
Yeah.
Well, we do theater in the park. We're always looking for things to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to watch it. I'm sure
It's a good idea. So anyway, that one was very, very hard job for me to leave, but it ended up just by chance stopping right before the pandemic. So I didn't know, but I wouldn't have had that very steady job right there. And then, of course, all the teaching had to happen online. And for some reason, where I taught in our home, it had a Wi-Fi dead spot. So I wasn't ever able to do online lessons at that home. But as soon as I moved here, I taught online before the pandemic happened because I kept a lot of my students.
Yeah.
Just so my setup in general was so much better here. Then my husband's a landscape contractor, and I think those.
I'm sure there's an infinite number of work for him here. Without the edgy environment that you had in San Francisco.
Yeah. So for many reasons, over time, it ended up being better for both of our careers.
How was it teaching kids? I mean, we hear the stories of how difficult it was to teach kids in general during the pandemic online, but you're teaching music. So what is that like?
Well,
and you still do it, I imagine.
I still do it, yeah. So I still have 4 people that I teach online that live in San Francisco.
Okay.
And one of them I've taught for on and off for 20 years. And another one, I mean, all the other ones, they are like a sophomore in high school, senior in high school, and I started them when they were 4 or 5.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've known them pretty much their whole lives. And another man is 87. I started him when he was 80.
Yeah.
So
if
helps.
You've been taking music lessons from somebody for 20 years, what can you give them in that 21st year? Like how does that work? Like you need to hold your hand a little bit differently. We talked about that 5 years ago.
So much to learn. I'm telling you.
Sure
you can always improve.
Yeah, I know it's endless, but
well, with this man, he studied as a child and then took a break and then started with me again when he was probably 40.
Oh, okay.
And he started and stopped because he moves and then takes a break, comes back. So, and he's a very good friend of mine. So part of the lesson is just catching up and then just keeping him on track and, helping him a bit. So it really depends person to person.
Well, with the theme of this podcast being we have no continuity or linear flow, how did you get into music as a child?
With that, I remember very distinctly my mother asking me, we were at church and my mom turned around after the service and asked my sister and I if we wanted to take piano. And I remember it so clearly.
How old were you?
I was 7.
Okay.
And I was very excited. And I said, yes, I definitely want to do it. And I was very excited about it. And my sister and I would walk down the street to this woman, this older woman, and take our lesson and go home. And I loved it from the very beginning. And we had a terrible...
Was this a Catholic? Were you in a Catholic church?
Yes. Yeah. How'd you know?
Well, I was just hoping because I had the same offer to take piano in a Catholic church, and I also said yes, but mine was a massive mistake. Where it seems like yours was a great fortuitous decision.
And it's not like my teacher was fun or engaging; she was pretty strict.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I just loved. I would practice. My parents never asked me to practice. We had this terrible piano that was in the basement that my parents got very cheaply, and I would just practice till I got my pieces, and I wanted to be prepared every week. And it also connected me to my grandmother because she was a professional organist and pianist and singer.
Yeah.
So she would visit, and we would play pieces together. So that was really fun. And I would play with neighborhood kids and
you would play piano with neighborhood kids. Like kids would come, other kids would come over, and you guys would play piano together.
We would do Heart and Soul and Chopsticks. All those pieces that you just kind of learn by looking, not by reading the music.
Yeah. If someone had told me that was a real thing, I wouldn't believe them. That the kids actually at that age get together and play piano together and have fun and stuff. I was always, it does. And all my experiences of piano were, just getting it over with so I could then go out and have fun with my friends.
That's
and then,
the typical,
and then, or I'd get the call, I'd be out with my friends, and it would be like, the yell for me to come back and start praying and be like, oh, yeah, man, we're just getting started out here. It's a nice day. And now I'm in the living room banging out the chords I'm supposed to learn. And
I definitely loved playing with my friends too, but that was just sort of my...
Well, you had the balance, at least you had.
Good balance.
And
And I was not, I think looking back, I'm like, sometimes I think, I don't think I was very gifted or talented. I definitely was not a prodigy by any means. I remember having like really kind of tense technique, but my perseverance and my love for it really helped me along the way. And it just kept developing further and further. So that's how I started. And then we moved around a lot as a child. One time it was 1 year. So every 1 to 4 years we would move with my dad's job at General Motors. And my mom was very good about always finding the piano teacher immediately. So whoever, it's like the neighborhood teacher was, I would continue that.
Yeah.
And then we moved when I was 15, which was a very difficult age to move. And I was not very happy with that move. And I found a boarding school for the arts that was 3 hours away. And figured out what I needed to do to audition, prepared with my teacher. My parents drove me up. And
how old were you?
Got in. I was
at that point
15.
Yeah.
And then by the time I was 16,
this is a passion story. This is like
looking back on that too, I'm like, how did that even happen?
Yeah, how does a 15-year-old go, I love you, Mom, but this is my dream, and I'm ready to go on my own at 15.
This is pre-internet too. I saw a little write-up in the paper where it said, so-and-so got a scholarship to Interlochen Arts Academy. And I thought, like, what is that? And called them, figured out, all of that. So I spent my junior and senior year at a boarding school in northern Michigan, which has all of the arts and kids from all over the world. So it was like a utopia for me.
Yeah.
And that's where I got very serious and spent probably 3 hours a day practicing.
Yeah.
And went on to major in music at McGill University in Montreal.
Okay.
And then got my master's in San Francisco in music after that. And that's what brought me to the Bay.
It makes it even stranger that you're here in Bend, Oregon. Like, given the high, these places you're in Montreal, you're in San Francisco, you're at these academies. Right. It reminds me a little bit of John Kish, where he's started in a very small town and then ended up in theater in New York, and then somehow wound his way back here to start his own things. Yeah. Much like you're doing.
His story, but that makes sense. Yeah, and then there's something so liberating about having all those experiences and then trying to do what you do in a smaller town. It's just like you can almost start over, and it doesn't have the infrastructure, which was very scary for me in the beginning. But then it's been so much fun to create my own opportunities.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that you had such I know there's tons of other people who have had nurturing experiences around their craft like that. But the fact that your mother didn't make you come in and practice, and that you weren't held to some, the I think tabloid vision of tiger moms and how you achieve success and kind of these in the arts, and is work and very little time for other things, and that all dissolves, I think, when you start talking to the people who are actually doing and think, aside from a few outliers like Andre Agassi, wrote the book about his dad driving was a psychopath to make him successful. It can happen. Like, I love talking to you, knowing it can also, because I can then go back to my parents and go, see, I told you I was bad when I was 8, and I was right.
It wasn't for me.
50 years later, I have affirmation.
Right? I struggle with it as a parent myself. Yeah. Because I see talent in my daughter. So I want to encourage her to, I won't go into too many details, but study at the best places and be committed. But then I wonder, well, if it's not coming from her, what's the point?
Yeah.
but to see like some potential, like missed potential is really hard for me.
Yeah.
As a mom.
Yeah, that's a challenge as a parent. I think, but you're lucky. You have a good model for that. Your mother didn't kind of showed you how you can let it go and be successful. You know, when my kids were coming up and I would see potential for them in various things, it was always very easy for me to fall back on my upbringing and go, okay, everything else is out. You're now going to just focus on soccer, and you're going to play soccer for 8 hours straight for the rest of the year. And quickly they would quit. Right. It was like, soccer sucks. I know I had potential, but I'm doing something else. You know?
I also feel very fortunate that my parents never got in the way. They never, I guess a lot of parents want their kids to do more lucrative paths or more just a safe path, but my parents never questioned it, and I feel very grateful for that.
Yeah, I would think, you're talking about going off and playing piano. There could have been and boarding school for music. I think there would be some warning bells, some conversations they had over the dinner table. Potentially your dad saying, "And how did we arrive here? What our 15-year-old daughter is going to go to boarding school. Why?"
I definitely remember him saying a few times, "What exactly do you want to do when you graduate?
Right.
How is this going to work?" But I always had somewhat of a plan, and it actually did happen.
Yeah. Clearly, again, you can go back and thank them. We were, successful. So incredible.
It always morphs. I love that too about my career. It's constantly morphing. Like if someone had told me at that boarding school what I would be doing today, I would never have believed it.
Yeah.
Even though it's still piano related, but it's so different than what I thought.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, during the pandemic, you got entrepreneurial. Was it a grant, or how did you come about getting the headphones for your silent concerts?
So I feel like the entrepreneurial piece is kind of a deep part of me. Like, for example, when I was 7 or 8, I made these pot holders.
And your mom never made you.
No.
She didn't shove you out on the road. And
we had like the kit, and I made these. And for some reason, I wanted to go door to door and sell them for $2 a piece. And I remember one neighbor saying, "Are you with some sort of organization?" And I said, "No, I'm just selling these." Just made them myself. And then in my 20s, I created my own piano book series, Little Gems for Piano.
Okay.
And again, just kind of didn't make sense at the time, but created that and ended up like those do pretty well. But with this concert series, I was out cross-country skiing one day, and it was one of those beautiful bluebird days. And for some reason, I thought it would be so neat if I could play a piano concert and people could have this experience that I'm having right now while listening to a concert. And I got home and I started brainstorming all sorts of other ideas along those lines. So I came up with the idea of people being on the water, like in their kayaks and canoes, and being able to hear them. And I knew the only technology to be able to do that I know of is through the wireless headphones. So I applied for a grant through the Bend Cultural Tourism Fund and received it. And that's what started everything. So I kind of had to dive in and give everything, like try to sculpt everything and give it a try before I even knew if anyone would want to do it and where exactly am I going to do this. But so many of the ideas that I wrote out that initial day have happened.
That's awesome. And I mean, you started with the cross-country skiing, right? Was that?
Yeah, that was the first one.
The first one.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah.
And since then, what are the other venues and environments you've?
Some of the other ones are, so Riverbend Park is one that I did on the water, laid out events. And Smith Rock was on that list for sure. So did that one.
Yeah.
And then the caves at Juniper Preserve.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I just wrote like lava caves. And I know specifically. And then the Meisner Lodge for the ski concerts.
Yeah.
And with that one, I'm so grateful to Steve as the president of the board at Meisner. And I just reached out to the general Meisner email with my crazy idea. And he wrote back and said, "Let's meet for coffee." And he was so kind and just wanted to dive in and give it a try. So
Yeah,
I'm grateful to people like that.
I remember when I was telling people about what you do and what and invariably everybody knows it from like raves or silent, come togethers. So there's not a lot of people that use that technology for piano, or something that's, I mean, I know you're not the first, but it's more affiliated with with crazier people dancing. I've seen the, YouTube videos of the, city environments, the rough neighborhoods like San Francisco there, where those people, but yours are very peaceful. They're very contemplative, meditative. It's a different kind of environment.
Yep. There's something about the headphones too that just sort of connect you more to yourself because you're not hearing any of the other sounds happening. So I think people tend to like tune in a little more to the music and to themselves.
Yeah.
Which is fun. And then they're having this shared experience with the people they're around.
Do you have, what are other entrepreneurial ideas that you have percolating? Or are you pretty happy with where you are?
I'm constantly brainstorming.
That's what I figured. I figure there's some next boarding school or something that's out there.
Well, let's see. I have started writing a book called How to Start Improvising on the Piano. So I started that, and I included a lot of interviews with people around the world, like wonderful improvisers and teachers. Yeah. So I started some of those interviews and then had to take a break because I had so many other things going on. So I would love to finish that book and create an online course where people can learn some of the improvisation concepts. So that's one project that I have in the works already. I did a tour of China, which I really loved. So I'd love to do that again at some point, and possibly like different countries. So.
And you were playing while you were on tour. You were.
I was playing, then I was presenting my Little Gems for Piano books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we didn't touch on that. I mean, I know you said you created that book, but you're pushing them it says in your bio internationally, and you've had success with those books.
Yeah. So they're a set of 4 different levels from the very beginning up to more, like a late intermediate level. And they're just intended to be very beautiful and motivating for piano students, and they can be taught by rote, which means demonstration. So it's just like Heart and Soul and Chopsticks, where kids are, teachers are just showing you how to play it, and you don't have to read it right away.
Oh, okay.
So you're still looking at the score, but you're mostly just making these beautiful pieces at the piano. So
sure.
They just progress, and then I do conferences and have booths where I exhibit and showcase the books. So I have one in Minneapolis, like in March.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're wedging these piano flow things in between all this other stuff that you have going on.
Yeah.
Well, that's incredible.
And then I have an online program called Piano Flow. So Piano Flow Live, which is the performing, and then Piano Flow is the teaching program, where it's an online improvisation program, mostly for adult pianists. And that last cohort, I had quite a few adults in band, which was fun.
So if somebody wants to, are you still taking students? Can people still be like, hey, or do they have to work with you for 20 years? Is it a lifelong commitment, or can somebody drop it?
Well, my studio's really changed over the years. Before I had kids, I had 40 students a week.
Wow, 40 students a week.
Yeah.
This just gets more and more interesting.
One was like a class of kids, but the rest were one-on-ones. And then after I had kids, I cut it to 20 per week. And then I went from 30 and then eventually 20. And then now I have those 4 that I've had forever. And then I'm mostly doing the Piano Flow program, which is like a group program for improvisation. And then I'm also working with the Tower Theater. They have a lesson plan program where they go into schools. And so I have a music and mindfulness program.
How frequent is that?
That one, we're doing 5 this season from September through May.
Okay.
So I have my first one at the end of the month.
So how do people find out about, I imagine that's in their Tower brochure, but I'm just curious how that would get started, and And then you're going to 5 different schools with that?
Yep. How do they find out about?
Well, so does the tower, is it the schools contacting the tower? Does the tower contact the schools? And
I think the tower contacts all the schools.
Okay.
And they had a specific date in August where they give them the website link.
Okay.
And then they can register for the events.
Wow.
Yeah. And they have a list. Maybe there was 10 or so different ones.
Okay.
That the schools can choose from.
Wow.
Different artists.
I was not aware of that. That is a very cool program. And they have, I imagine, in addition to you, they have other people doing other programs that are going into the schools.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them are touring artists that perform at the tower.
Yeah.
And then they have their educational outreach event.
Okay.
So a lot of them some of them happen in the Tower Theater where they bus the kids there, and then some happen in the school.
Great.
So mine will be in the schools.
Note to self: there's a story. Yeah.
Yeah, lesson plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and then they also sponsor me to play at a few different events. Like I just played a bereavement event for loved ones who have passed or who are ill. So a lot of my music is like some of it represents loved ones of mine who have passed, and kind of their life story. So I performed at one of those events, and they're coordinating a few other collaborations too.
As far as original music that you've created, what's the longest piece, or what's the most celebrated piece that you've created?
Well, the one I'm most proud of, and it's probably the most complex, it's called Revolt and Reveal, and it surrounds my feelings of my move to Bend.
Okay.
And it's I was teaching it yesterday to a student who's a senior in high school, and she said, this really is like a full story. And it really is. It starts out like very dramatic and kind of moody, and then it moves into this otherworldly sounding section.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I believe in like other forces kind of coming in to help guide you. So it represents that. And
like the pandemic. I'm sure there's some pandemic chords in there.
It might have been during the pandemic. Maybe right before. And there's like a beautiful section that's the favorite thing I've ever written, and that represents the simple moments in life that are sometimes the most cherished. Like my daughter was just playing on the carpet with toys. She was like 4, and I was playing piano and just kind of like having gratitude for those simple moments. Yeah. And then that beginning theme comes back, but then it gets more triumphant and in a major key instead of minor.
Yeah, that's great. Well, if we we'll try to put a link to the. Does it avail? I mean, can people go to your site and hear the play? Well, we'll connect to that. Yeah, that'd be great.
And then I love writing I have 2 that are tributes to people that are important to me who have passed. Those are very special.
Yeah. Well, Paula, that's the end of our time here together. Anything that you would like to share with listeners, readers, watchers that we didn't touch on?
Well, I didn't mention I was on the board for ETC. I don't know if you've heard about them, Ellipse Theater Community.
Oh, okay.
I was on their board for 4 years, and they put on amazing productions throughout Central Oregon.
Great.
So they have traveling road shows.
And you play? You're playing for those performances?
I did play for one. I might do another one in May, but mostly just served as a volunteer and board member.
Great.
That's a great one. And if you want to see anything of what I do, you can subscribe at pauladreyer.com.
Okay.
And I can't wait to play more for people here and meet more people in Bend. And I'm just so happy that Bend has been so accepting of these crazy endeavors.
Yeah. Well, they're embracing the Piano Flow series and the being kind of modest, but you sold out the performances at the Cave at Juniper Preserve, and sounded like an incredible performance. Yeah. Yeah. Seems like a magical place to play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So many places I've played here, I just can't even believe it.
Yeah.
Just look around and
I can't stop digging at San Francisco. You know, it's not San Fran.
Right? I didn't know I needed to just get out of the concert hall.
Right. Well, Paula, thank you again for coming and chatting with us. This has been the Bend Don't Break podcast. If you like what you hear, please support it with sponsorship or membership through our website. And helps us keep doing these conversations that we're having.
Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Thank you.
Yep.
You've been listening to the Bend Don't Break podcast, powered by The Source Weekly. To read, hear, and see more of what we do, go to bensource.com.